Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Am I audible? Someone let me know if you can hear me and if the audio levels are all right. I am using Streamlabs and I am not, or OBS, and I am not familiar with it. Do let me know, peoples. I expect there is a delay, so just plug it in the comments. Aha, Mike Murphy indicates all systems are a go. Well, I am glad to hear it. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me. Welcome to Semiacog. This is a live stream, something of a test live stream, by means of which I will ascertain whether or not I am capable of mastering the technological challenges necessary for me to start live streaming again. I've basically been letting it sit there since we went through the business of Google Hangouts being removed. So, what do we have here? All systems are a go. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for this to work, for this Ask Me Anything segment to work, for it to remain online, and even for it to work right now while we're talking, you guys have to ask me questions, good ones, that are fit for public consumption, nothing indiscreet, you understand me. But yes, that's how it needs to happen. I am going to attempt to track the chat. I see Waterpenny is in the house. Hello, Miss Waterpenny. Sabrina C1 is in the house. Hello, Miss Lady. Arecos Reis, Gavin Baker, adherent of Lady of Columbia. The erudite, Jonathan Paul, Dr. Jonathan Paul. Welcome, sir. Glad to see you in here. And Elva Caro 555. Excellent. So we have the Rogues Gallery in here tonight. Excellent. Cocoa Puffs or Fruit Loops? I don't know how I'd feel about it today, but back in the day, it was Fruit Loops. Oswald in the house. Greetings. SD, greetings. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I will, follow the chat here and attempt to be somewhat entertaining, but you guys are going to have to formulate some good questions. Indiscreet questions, good questions, fit for public consumption. I should also say I was just over there listening to Jared from The Great Order and Jason Kona of No White Guilt and Ruination, also known as Porridge. They were basically giving out the prizes for the Last Message to the West contest. You guys should jump over there and check it out, find out who won. Apparently, Ashalogos, I think, took first place, but I don't want to give away all the rest. I had to leave before they finished the honorable mentions, so I don't know everything. Please check it out. And from there, you can find it over at No White Guilt's channel. There will be a link, doubtless, in the description box over there that will allow you to go to their website, which is dedicated to the content. They're hosting the video clips over there. There's one of mine, and there are, 29 or more, I think, if I heard correctly, during the live stream. So go check that out, too. So what do we have here? Sean L., welcome. Moonman, excellent. Napoleon Bonaparte. What do I make of recent mass arrests in Turkey, Jonathan Paul asks. I am ashamed to say that I have not heard of them. I'm not aware of them. The last I paid any close attention to that, I was noticing that, down on the southern border, there were issues with Erdogan not having things go quite as smoothly and as easily as he thought might be the case. I have not looked at any of this. I'm ignorant. I'm unaware. I should have just said, I don't know. I should look. You can let me know in comments here if there's some brief way to summarize it. Zedez in the house. Hello. The mighty ZD. Oh, excellent. Jared George in the house. Hello, sir, and thank you for sending folks over from the live stream. If, in fact, you guys are done, take your time. I'm sorry, I just wanted to test this live stream. Did not mean to step on your live stream's toes, certainly. Okay, what do we have here? Arika Reese says, which book are you currently reading? Well, one of them I'm rereading, and I have here, just in case I need to come up with some, filler material, as you guys think of good ideas, is La Rochefoucauld's Collected Maxims. This fella here. Yes. He's from the 17th century and experienced in diplomacy and war, known for aspiring only to be a gentleman. He in particular liked the company of women when they were of the intelligent sort, and he was famous for distilling his ideas into these crystalline little nuggets of humor, invective, ridicule, prudent observation. All right. What else do we have here? And I'll even read you one in just a moment. But I want to see if I'm missing any good questions from Water Penny. Will Oliver move to a nice walnut grove and get out of the city before the zombie apocalypse? Well, that's a very good question. We shall see. Wherever I go, I will likely have to produce my own walnut grove, which I think will require patience. But yes, we shall see. I must finish renovating this place in order to sell it. All right. Napoleon Bonaparte. Ignorance is one of the most effective tools of war. Quite. Zedez. Best stuff semi-agog. Yes. Air pollution in Tennessee. All right. Questions already. Yes, some questions are coming in. Semi-agog, I wish you'd make a return to videos on esoteric subjects. Hermesis. Hermeticism, Renaissance magic. Yes, well, I should do that. And I've been thinking about how to approach that. And in particular, I want to do some things that have to do with esoteric Shiite, I guess you could call it Neoplatonism, that would be associated with some of the stranger Shiite sects, like the so-called assassins, the Nizari Ismailis of Alamut fame, and Hassan Sabah and, Sinan, these kinds of figures, because they've got a Neoplatonic streak that runs through their thought that is very interesting in the way it finds symbolic expression, particularly in the works of Henri Corbin. And I've been thinking about doing something about that. I don't know how to really approach it. I've had my head so far up the ass of politics that I do feel kind of dirty. So I haven't really been able to fully transition over into reading things that require being sort of in that state of mind. So yeah, I don't know. It should be soon. I recognize it's been a while. I appreciate your patience in still sticking with the channel in the absence of the stuff you prefer. I will try to do something about that. Gavin Baker asks, what is your opinion on the problem of technology? Hear your opinion on Ted Kaczynski's take on the issue. I'm not familiar with old Ted Kaczynski's take. He is the Unabomber, if I remember correctly. I don't have issues with it. My Luddism is of the voluntary variety. I believe in removing myself from technology if I wish on my own terms, not trying to set it up so that others can't. But I don't know much about it, so I can't really say much. I certainly wouldn't send bombs out to people who had different views than I did about technology. Elva Caro 555. Did I hear Kamala dropped out of the race today? Yes, I did. I rather like your expression, quid pro ho. Yes, I guess she's got. I shouldn't say these sorts of things on live streams, but this is an 18 and over live stream. I'm sure that there are knee holes beneath many desks, which will accommodate her. Adherent of Lady Columbia, have you ever heard the argument of humans ultimately having no moral responsibility, that since a person is not the cause of themselves and is not given a choice in preference of mind? I mean, there's 100 different ways you could come at that. You could almost look at the Max Stirner idea that a person is falsely identifies with the ego and has these other kinds of ghostly identifications, or that the ego in some distilled and pure state is the only thing, that utter subjectivity, depending on how you tackle that, which would say then there's no right and wrong, and in which case you would have no moral responsibility. Or you could go to a strictly materialist, behavioralist, I guess, I'm just throwing these damn words out there, empirical kind of framework where it's all, neurobiological response to stimulus that can be predicted. I think Skinner tried to make that idea work. I don't know. These are the kind of directions I think of when I, play with the idea of a human being ultimately having no moral responsibility, but it hasn't been a major focus of mine. Sean asks about, God, man, you guys are laying it in there. Ali, thoughts on slaves back in early America days costing the price of cars, and how often they were beaten or trusted and taken care of? Well, they certainly couldn't have been beaten overwhelmingly because they would rise up, as they did at various points in our history, and kill the people running the farming operation, and run amok for a while there, or run off into the woods to join the American Indians. There's not much attention paid to the fact that there was considerable crossover there. Yeah, I mean, the way I've always heard it was that they were crazy expensive, and so you did not want to destroy them because there was considerable investment there, particularly since the North American slaves doing things like, picking cotton in the southeast, or, working on tobacco plantations. It got bad with sugarcane in places like Mississippi and Louisiana, probably parts of Alabama, I'm not really sure. But in the United States, because they were more expensive and because we closed the borders to trade from abroad in slaves early compared to a lot of other countries, they had a much longer life expectancy. We generally approached it in a Protestant, or at least a Northwest European way, in wanting to, protect our investment if you want to set aside any of the morals. So there was very little of that beating them to death, or like the French sugarcane plantations in places like Haiti, where they were just worked to death. My impression is that they were expensive investments, and so they were treated as such. Amanda Anderson in the house. Excellent. And you know what? I need to make Zed as moderator too. I'm so happy to see moderator people. Yes. All right. Did I do that right? I think I did it. Yes. Okay. What am I missing here? And you know what? I really want to stop saying That's where I need some Skinner's techniques. I need a shock collar that actually shocks me in the neck when I say in a live stream or in a clip I'm working on. All right. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to catch up. Zedez asks if I would discuss the fabric hanging behind me. That is an embroidery. It's all embroidered across the surface, except in the areas where you can see what I guess used to be white. It's certainly not white now. It's very stained, and it can't really be washed because none of the aniline dyes that were used, I think they're all aniline dyes, are color fast. So if I were to try to wash it, it would bleed all over the place. It's a big problem with this particular type of textile, which is called a Suzani. And that means in one of these, in Persian or something like that, or one of its dialects, I believe. You probably find the term in Azerbaijan. I learned it in Turkey. Of course, they're Turkish speaking. But anyway, the term is Suzani, and apparently it's pretty much equivalent to a dowry, in the sense that the women would produce these, and they would go in the trousseau for the woman who would be married off, and they would be used as interior wall hangings. And they could be, inside something like a yurt, but in places like Bukhara, they have versions of these that would hang inside, the walls of finished buildings. But it does go back to the steppe roots of it, and it was intended as a wall hanging. They're quite heavy, as you can imagine, because, as I said, everything there that you see behind me that's not white is embroidered. So they're pretty stout. That one in particular is a Tajik. And I'm not sure what the conventional wisdom is on those rosette patterns. There's probably some, known business about them being a gul or something. But to me, they really do strikingly bring to mind pomegranates. So anyway, it's a wall hanging from Tajikistan, and it's probably early 20th century. I doubt it's much later than the 30s. Yeah, so there it is. What's next? Who will be purged on the 10th of December? I don't know, but it may well be me. We'll see. Owen Benjamin just got ejected. And, somebody wrote in a tweet about that. They said, right after 60 minutes, Owen Benjamin gets ejected from YouTube. And I was thinking to myself, I still haven't watched. I've seen a few snippets from that 60 minutes thing, but I haven't watched it. So I don't know. Was he on it? Or is this just him getting booted as a result of their pretext? Their general cantankerousness. Okay, and we have Amanda Anderson here. Shock. In the absence of learned morality, we revert back to animalistic instincts. Survival has no moral high ground, makes for bad news bears. Oh, well, that's a truism and an observation, so I don't have to answer that. Okay, Waterpenny. Will Mexico allow the U.S. to help clean up the border cartel problem? Mexican president is saying no thank you, but he prefers to keep his head attached. You know, I don't know about that. I was going to record with Tim today. We decided to move it forward this week, and I wanted to ask him about Mexico. I saw that some of the, well, we're told that 3 people associated with the LeBaron killings have been picked up, and there is Trump's claim that he is going to declare, you know, the cartels terrorist organizations, and he probably will. Yeah, so we'll have to see. I think something is going to happen there. And frankly, you know, Tim and I have been saying this shit about Trump all this time. Something's really going to have to happen within the first month or two of, at the latest, of the new year, or I'm going to begin to think I have to like re-examine everything. But I still feel it's going to happen, and that it's solid. The expectations and predictions weren't wrong in their general outlines. And so I think that would include Mexico and the likelihood that we're going to step in and become more active down there. All right. What else do we have here? Have I ever been, Elva Caro 555 says, have you ever been zapped by one of those dog collars? I tried it once. They zap you. Yes. I have not been zapped with one of those, but I had somebody stick one of those, you know, little hand gripper, 2-pronged, sparks go between them, shocker things, and it was uncomfortable. Zedez says the Suzani is beautiful. Thank you. I had one that was from Bukhara too, that where every square inch of it was embroidered. It was much heavier. I ended up selling it. I think I got like $1,300 for it, and it was probably 1930s, 40s. Yeah, the problem is the colors. I have the Tajik one here because it's bold colors. I'm a dude, you know. I don't want like my mother gets blobs of colors together that just don't suit my aesthetic. They have to be somewhat related to earth tones or kind of stark. Whereas a lot of these Central Asian embroideries, and it happens a lot with textiles, with carpets, as far east as Kyrgyzstan, and also with, you know, for example, Kurdish rugs. They love these horrible hot pinks and purples. They're just bleh, bleh. So the challenge is to find textiles that have how shall I say it? I don't know, that have the right vibe. Actually, I can show you a couple because I got here. Where else I got here? Here we go. I'll take questions, people. I won't go on too long, but the ladies deserve some attention too. This is one where it's embroidery on velvet. I'm not going to open them all up, but this is, you know, mid 20th century. These are all from Central Asia. These are these kind of batik scarves that the village women wear on their heads. These are smaller Suzanis that get used as decorative things that get dropped in places. This one, I really don't like the color on these. These are a bunch that my mother bought in the Grand Bazaar, and I didn't. They reflect her color tastes, not mine. But she gave them to me because she's got too much antique shit around the house. This one isn't too bad. This is a more classic Suzani, probably 1920s, 1930s. And the colors aren't bad. You can almost see sort of the Chinese influence on it. Of course, this is Central Asia, and the further east you get, the more you see that kind of vibe. Oh, this is something when my dad died I found. Just, I don't know what it is. It seems to be some kind of silk. It feels almost like a crepe the way it's woven. So I think it is, yeah, it certainly is silk, but it's got some sort of surface process, some sort of painting of the fabric or dyeing of it. I thought this was appropriate given that I'm a white-haired old fucker now. So it was my dad's and I kept it. Probably came from some girlfriend of his trip to East Asia in the 1970s or something. So it's a little better than most of the kind of tourist crap you see. So I figured I'd keep it. Textiles are things that men should pay more attention to. More of these headscarves of ladies. I realize this is going to drive my right-wing father going to be, you're macho, Oliver. Yeah, embroideries from ladies who liked me. This is a Suzani, and it's got all the crazy beads and stuff, you know. It's the color for me. This is all getting a little riotous. It's too much for me. It's like clown, kind of an example of what I was talking to you about when I mentioned the Suzani on the back of the wall. This, however, this is classic. This is the good old shit, and you can see that back in the day, these tribes people they had taste. It just got screwed up with all this, you know, when aniline dyes came in, you know, not madder root, not indigo and the rest. They're super hot dyes that look very artificial. They seem very, you know, fake. And so the I don't know. This is also very faded. This certainly uses aniline dyes too, like for the yellow, but this is older. This is a child's collar. So the head of the little boy or girl, and I'm ashamed to say I don't know which, probably a girl, but you know, they're pretty androgynous as children. I couldn't say. This is probably a tribal sign. It's basically an embroidered damga, or reminiscent of an archar. Mountain goat for the Turks is symbolic for a lot of the tribes, but it would sit on the kid's shoulders like this, and the head would come up through. Like, that's a beautiful textile. You can see it's embroidered. You know, it's all funky stuff. But still not really my taste. Like I said, I just sort of took it because my mom wasn't into them. She brought too many back, so she's got these old antique cabinets full of textiles she bought everywhere. Anyway, it's good for men to become accustomed to such things, because it used to be in our culture too, God damn it. Once upon a time, when you wanted to show up for the dance and show you were somebody, you'd come out with a beautiful shirt that would have all this embroidery on it that your mother or sisters would have done for you, or your wife, because they made all the clothes. And people don't know how much the mills freed the women. It was only when I started looking into weaving and textiles and that whole world, the production of cloth. You know, prior to the advent of the mills, most women spent most of their time, you know, you think about the child rearing and the cooking and the helping with the farming and the gathering and this kind of stuff, or dealing with livestock. They would literally have the kid under one arm and a spindle and distaff in the other, you know, arranged so that they can kind of hold the kid and work the drop spindle or whatever they're using, pulling the flax or wool or whatever it was. They were, if they weren't spinning, they were weaving, and if they weren't spinning or weaving, they were sewing. So it's a good thing to know about in terms of culture. And I've fallen very behind, folks. I'm going to try to catch up here. Napoleon Bonaparte says, appears pagan, burn it. Well, I guess everyone has their approach. Zedez. Must have been quite a trek to bring back some of these things. Yeah. Gary Coleman says, how do I make a living? Well, I do a number of things. I write, I consult, I do consulting as regards communication, strategy, and branding. So it's kind of upstream of marketing and advertising, and it involves understanding what the people who want to engage with the brand are looking for, and then to get that into alignment with what the brand actually is. Adherent of Lady this just jumped forward. Hey, I see Poseidon's on. Hello, sir, and congratulations on your placement in the last message to the West contest. You guys should definitely go check that out. Poseidon was one of the winners. He is a friend of ours from distant Greece. Okay, so I'm just going to try and catch up on these questions because I talked too long about textiles and I didn't even have a moment to read from La Rochefoucauld. So I've got a request for a video from Adherent of Lady Columbia. I'll check it again. Mr. Ixme's in the house. Hello and welcome. I love that black cat icon. All right. Death of a Nation by Dinesh D'Souza. I have not watched it. Dinesh D'Souza kind of gives me hives because he's such a snotty Brahmin all the time. Okay. Somebody said, let's Red Zedez says, let's talk red teaming. I'm not sure what that means, so you have to explain because I don't understand it. Audrey Meehan says, do you believe in free will, self-making, or a destiny, or perhaps a synthesis? The best way I ever heard it explained, and it seems to fit well with my experience, is that there is a God damn, I can't talk tonight. There is a self with a small s, and there is a self with a large S. And the self with a large S corresponds more to true will. And the self with a small s corresponds more with free will. And the challenge is to bring the small self and the large self into alignment, and similarly to bring the free will and the true will into alignment. Sounds simple. Okay. El Vaquero talking about Gore. Oh, that's a cartel video. Yes, I'll be looking forward to the cartel video from El Vaquero 555. And Oswald says, do you think that there has been a considerable resurgence, emergence of interest to a political extent of white ethnic origins in America? I'm guessing that you meant to write ethnic. What ramifications or reasons do you think coincide if so? Well, I mean, the time has come for such questions to be asked. And I should announce that I just recently did an appearance on JF Garyapi's The Public Space. You can find it within the last week, the last 7 days, and it is on European identity. And it's a very long discussion, and I enjoyed having it with him. I suggest you all go check it out because it is, I don't know, I think it's cool. It's worth your time. If the kind of question you just asked about the resurgence and emergence of interest in white ethnicity in America, if that's the sort of thing that you're into, then check it out over on JF, and you'll hear some of my thoughts on why I think that's happening now. All right. God, man, I'm way behind, guys. Sorry. Let me just move through. Do I need a waifu? I can't remember what a waifu is. That's scary. All right. Most rugs in Kurdistan are made in Chinese factories. Yes, and increasingly so. Everything in the Grand Bazaar, man. Dr. Pole, sir, I could talk to you for hours about the scamming and the games. Oh, man. But I did learn how to spot fakes, the best of the fakes that they're able to produce, at least of antique weapons from the Muslim world, because I've handled and owned enough of them. When you get up close to them, you see how they're supposed to wear, how they were put together, this kind of thing. Sorry, I have a cat scratching at the door. You can spot the fakes. But yeah, textiles, it's a huge problem. It's as bad as with icons. I bought an icon that I thought was from the 17th century in the Grand Bazaar. What an idiot. However, I'm better than most people because I was able to return it. Can you imagine that, being able to return something to the Grand Bazaar? No, I only got half my money back, but I was lucky to get any back at all. All right, Navajo weavings, New Mexico desert colors. Yes, I've seen them. They're very nice. They're much like the Turkish kilins. But what's happening now is the people in Istanbul who are selling to the tourists are telling the other people further afield to work with different palettes. All right, Ollie's doily show. All right, what do we have here? Authentic Navajo rugs going to El Vaquero 555. Nice. Okay, so this is all from where I'm showing the textiles, and Jonathan Pohl is making fun of me. Okay, yes. So I really do need to catch up. Again, Poseidon in the house. It's not King David. It's been a while. Welcome back. Sir Charles Edmonds, the mouse, right on. Okay, I'm going to have to jump over some things, folks, or I'm going to be missing. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to read the ones that have the orange of my name now, just because I'll be missing people's questions and I will ramble on. Yes, I am on live chat. Waterpenny, thank you for asking. All right, Steve Hamlin, hello. Polygon, what are your thoughts on Abe Lincoln's funerary arch being topped with a 6-pointed star? Was he a Rothschild agent? I have never even heard of that. I have no idea. I am the first notion. Proud white settler in the house. Oh, fuck, man. He had to come in while I'm showing old textiles. Jesus Christ, man. I'm telling you, the right wing is the wrong place to get in touch with your feminine side. All right. People won't even get the sarcasm. All right. I'm only going to be looking at the ones that have the big orange thing on them. Zedez summarized JF's diagram of Semiagog's verbiage. Yes, I remember that. That's about collective versus individual. Okay. El Vaquero states, if you missed it, do you think the left made a strategic mistake in using race, ethnicity, genderqueer shit for its Marxist oppressor versus oppressed bid for power? I think, honestly, that a lot of that is driven by the fact that so much Chinese money is involved currently, overtly and desperately in the open with trying to thwart Trump's attempts at re-election. And I think they just don't get it. Like, there really is a major cultural divide in thinking and expression. Tim has talked about it before in the sense that they can't imagine that anyone in the United States or anyone, anywhere in the world, because of how they think of things, particularly not a public figure, could suffer so much of what they see as loss of face. And so, yeah, I think they misjudge. Another way I noticed it is that there's one of these ambassadors or someone who was recently over here who's high up in the Chinese government who was here for negotiations. I'm sorry, I can't remember who it was, but there was a tweet that he put out where he was talking about, it's almost this caricature, although of course it was written, not spoken. And he's saying, whites live in DC, outside DC for black. It was just like attempting to inflame racial tensions, but not really understanding why. I think they're a little bit off on it. It's a bad combination. There's something of a cultural gap, so they can't quite tune their manipulations in the way that they would want to. And at the same time, they're very desperate. They have to do something quickly. And that always means that you don't do it as well. Now, of course, there are other groups, older traditional communist groups and powers within, the media and banking and all the rest that we've been tracking or talking about. Everybody has different views on who it is, but the bottom line is we know there's somebody there and they're doing something, and they're using some of the same old methods. But again, they're desperate because Clinton was supposed to get into office. They were supposed to be consolidating their power for the last 3 years, instead of seeing it be eroded. And so again, they're in a desperate position. So that just makes for more clumsy, more ham-fisted attempts to manipulate. All right. We got a request for a poem. I've just done a bunch of poems lately, and I've already been too sensitive on this live stream. There are males present as well, but there are any number of new poems that I have posted as one-off quick clips. And yeah, if you want to check them out, you can find them there. Audrey Meehan says, "I'll embroider your family crest on the house." Embroidery. I think embroidery is fascinating. Textiles as well. There's something about how they catch the light when they're made by hand. They're real. It's different. They don't come off a machine. And that's one of the reasons why I like the old textiles, why I like the antique weapons and the rest. I grew up around a few close friends, and my dad had a few. My dad was mainly the books and a few old things, but it was, barographs and ship's wheels and things to measure. There's a name for it. It looks like a torpedo that you drop off the back, a taffrail log. It was that kind of crap that my father had. But then I had close friends, a friend whose father was Turkish, who collected antiques and was an oil painter and had old rugs and Circassian saddles. And when you're around these old things and you're actually exposed to them, then you gain an eye for them. And there's a way that they look, that they reflect light differently. They take light differently. They have the attention that was put into them to be made by hand, come from a different period. Hand embroidery, handmade clothes. Sadly, we're not going to see it come back most likely because women would have to spend so much damn time working. All right. Okay, I'm seeing where do that. I'm lost here. Okay. Little troll box says, Semiagog, what are your bona fides other than an occasional nose whistle? I added that. Curious, but you strike me as a polymath. I'm self-educated, mostly. So bona fide, you mean like, did I get special stamps after my name? No, I have not gotten a degree anywhere, but my parents are both writers and editors. Well, one of them is still alive. So I was raised reading and writing, and I've met many strange and interesting people and lived in many places. And I've been invited to participate in academic conferences 3 of them. They even paid to fly me there. It was amazing. Leiden University, can you imagine that? On Marx and Signs. And I've published academic work in peer-reviewed journals. I've edited academic works, or helped to edit them for publication, including a book on the Crimean War by Brill, working with a Turkish scholar. So yeah, I forced my way in without having to pay and endure the degradation, indoctrination, and raping of my wallet. Wow, Angel Maggot says I look like Captain Hook in Neverland. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'll have my people get back to your people. Maybe read short poems on BitChute too, for those of us cough cough permabanned cough. Amanda Anderson, are you banned from Twitter? I had no idea. That would explain why I haven't seen you there in a while. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'll see if I can put them together in one big block or something. Red Lion yet? No, I have not read Red Lion yet, but I will, damn it. That from Bruce Karras. Thank you for asking. Albuquerque, did I see where China recently accused the CIA, really people, I can't talk tonight, CIA of feminizing men in Asia. Chinese money as a form of rabble rousing would make sense if revenge is a part of it. No, these are increasingly specific and esoteric questions. All right, what else? Is deathless being ontologically possible? Can the non-I transcend being in a post-mortem state and become more I than I? Well, yes, but that's kind of the beginning. Self did not begin, no ending can there be. Who holds fast to these truths shall win to immortality, to pull it from the Tao. There is no beginning and end. And there's state distinction and subject-object division and all these other things, and on the precipice of paradox. And yeah, that's a more specialized question, and even if this were an appropriate stream for me to hazard it, I'm still not sure I could answer it. Like what's his name, anecdotally, apocryphally, I should say, Charles Manson said that death must be the best trip of all because they save it for last. Okay. Do I think Hillary Clinton will run? This from Little Troll Box. At this point, I don't think so. I do not. It's possible, but I don't think so. Jerry Glasgow asks, is anyone following up on the idea of using Pornhub as a new place for posting videos? Well, I forwarded a link on Twitter to them about it. It emerged, well, some people came in and done what I should have done, which is go research Pornhub specifically in terms of its ownership. It seems that they would likely not be interested, and they're already making plenty of money, in doing something that wouldn't have the same cash yield. So it's an argument for Pornhub not being as likely the place where it comes from. But I still think that, generally speaking, something from the alternative world of porn, where they've already got their financial transaction systems set up, they've already been stress tested because they've probably been booted from typical processors for too many chargebacks or whatever. I think that something of that world, in terms of hosting, in terms of bandwidth, existing tools, I mean, for all we know, that's exactly what BitChute already is, just not an effective version of it. Now, I don't know that to be the case. I'm not asserting it. I'm just saying even that could already be, or any one of the other 5 or 10 platforms, like DTube or DLive or whatever the hell, I can't remember any of the names. But anyway, you get my point. The main idea is that it didn't have to come out of Pornhub, and it seems likely that they would probably never do anything like it. Now that I've learned more about it from viewers or people coming in the comments section and letting me know, but I still think that space is one to watch. Both poetry and sword fighting were the skills of the medieval knights. Yes, I do like Cyrano de Bergerac. Dancing Dove in the house. Hello, ma'am, and welcome. She is the Lady of the Birds. Check out her channel. All right, Zedez, Water Penny. What am I missing? Trying to get down here, people. Okay. I'm, yes, going to have to jump ahead to where it's highlighted. Semigog from Waterpenny. Have you yet taken up bookbinding again, or is that for later years? That is still waiting, and I have to get a good lying press. Really, I need a standing press, I need a lying press, and I need a rig for rounding and backing. And of course, the things that go with that, the lying press, I need a plow and blades for the rounder and backer. I need a backing hammer, rounding and backing hammer. I'm going to have to go to England again and bring a bunch of money and buy bookbinding tools and bring them back. And then, see if there's still stuff to be found. I need a big litho stone for skiving leather. But yeah, it's going to be later. That's when I can no longer lift weights and shit like that. I'm still trying to stay physical, but bookbinding has been set aside. And maybe if I have sufficient lenses and magnifying glasses and shit like that, I like the idea of screwing around with enamels. And perhaps doing it on precious metals, because ultimately I imagine hand binding a book that's of illuminated images and words and doing it way back like in the old days with enamel work on the jeweled binding, to really do it up, but have the interior be more like Blake, but really do it up so it's flashy and over the top, because then people will keep it around, at least in theory. That's what the decorated covers are for. They're for people who don't give a shit what's inside the book. And in this day and age, that'll probably be the best way for me to help assure the survival of whatever subversive shit I put inside the book itself. Waterpenny says, do you still believe a dark horse candidate will appear for the 2020 election? Yeah, I do. But it's still such a slow motion train wreck that God only knows. All right, what else do we have here? El Vaquero, you ever thought about getting into amateur radio? Ham, it could be useful to know how to use that equipment. Yes, actually, I am looking into that. My dad was a ham radio operator. He worked with the guys who did the Whole Earth catalog, because he did something like it at the time, and he published a magazine called The Log. And it had like vagabonding and, what they called vagabonding, bicycling and trekking and backpacking and spelunking and diving and treasure hunting, all broken into sections. Before the internet, you would go to the different pages to figure out where to go and, how to do it. So my dad, he was in the Sea Scouts, and my mother and he, they sailed around on a sailboat forever with my older brother. I shouldn't be giving all these personal details about my life, but there it is. And so as a result, he not only knew how to do things like use sextant and, fiddle about with astrolabes and star charts and navigation and the rest, but he taught himself Morse code and got his, certification for ham back in the day when you needed that. He also was an expert first aid dude who had done that with Red Cross. So I should get off my ass and do some of these things. And I have not done it. Yeah, ham is one of them. I just saw some stuff on, what's his name's channel, Forward Observer, where he recommended a particular type of Motorola radio. So I've been looking at that, probably won't get a police scanner, but it would make sense to have some kind of radio here other than shortwave. I'll give it some thought. I need to get with more proper technical men, guys with more tools in their garage. They're the sensible ones that I need to be spending more time with to get some more practical knowledge. I'm always in books and shit like that, which is cute until you need to do things like fix shit yourself. So yeah, I'm manning up. What else do we have here? Sean L. asks, thoughts on banks versus credit unions? I don't know enough about it. It was never my my area of focus. Not King David, Semigog, in virtue as a memory tradition, when I study the image with hand and symbols, horse on palm, is there hidden significance in the specific order they're arranged? Some count the fingers differently. This question from Not King David is about a collaboration I did with an oil painter named Eric Stevens, and he's really, really talented guy. Painted these beautiful images based on my selection of fixed memory images. I was trying to put together a book that was made up of objects from Western culture at its deepest roots as a horse culture that serve as a metaphorical basis. So one of the things in horse culture with cattle and traction systems and stock raising that you have to have in all cultures, in all times, in all places is a rope. Because otherwise you can't rope cattle, you can't pull a horse around, you can't tie anything to anything. And so I look at the old words, which in Indo-European are like bind and band and bond. And so I give it a 3-letter code, BND, and there's a painting of a rope. Well, there are 12 of these symbols, and each symbol, there's like a saddle and a sword and milk and an animal hide. It was a way to try to constellate based on what was back there in material culture, all these elements that are at the deepest, most primitive level of our Western horse culture. And I show on the palm, so you can remember these signs. The horse is drawn, and then each of the 12 symbols are here along the joints of the fingers, because with the Guidonian hand and some of the old stuff that had to do with music, memorizing music in the case of the Guidonian hand, or reckoning on your fingers, or in things like the music of the Indian subcontinent. They count rhythms this way because you've got more steps. You can count up to 12 this way. So I count it in the same order that the paintings, to answer the question, I count it in the same order that the paintings are presented in the text, and it runs along the fingers like this, which is a great way, by the way, to count syllables when you're drafting poetry. Proud White Settler, have you read the Voynich manuscript? Well, that's a trick question. No one has read the Voynich manuscript, but yeah, I am familiar with it. I've paid attention trying to figure out if there's numerical symbolism in the number of flowers growing out of the drawing of the plant in the border. And hell, for all I know, somebody may have proposed some plausible deciphering of it, but at this point, I am not aware of it. I'm familiar with it, but I have no idea what it really is. Oswald, Semiagog, what do you think of Varg Thulian Perspective getting booted off of YouTube? Did you like his content at all? I did not know much about him. And only later somebody explained to me that he was the same guy with the church burning stuff back in the day. And I didn't know it. So I was like, oh, wow. And then I went and looked and saw, oh, that's the Scandinavian black metal and all that craziness. Yeah, I didn't know much about him, and I connected the dots only recently. That was a whole angle of metal, if you will, that I never went and explored. I watched a few of his clips. It's interesting. I didn't form much of an opinion, and I didn't even hear that he was booted, but it doesn't surprise me. We all may well soon be booted. So yeah, head over to BitChute and subscribe there, because we all might end up there soon. And what was the other one? Again, I did a thing recently with JF on the public space, JF Garyapi, and it has to do with identity, European identity. It's within the last 7 days. Do go check it out. There's more than an hour of discussion on it, and it's always great to talk to JF, as he's got a very, very quick mind, and he will basically run along with you wherever the hell you want to go, and occasionally outpace you. So yeah, check that out, as well as subscribing over on BitChute. Okay, SD asks, are demons interdimensional beings, spiritual intermediaries, or psychic egregores? There is so much shared definition that would have to be established. You know, we're talking about demon versus daemon, or the idea of a genius, which gets reinterpreted, arguably, in the form of a genie. Yeah, can they be both good and bad? Are they morally neutral? Is it, are you coming at it as a framework where there's no way, for example, a demon could be a morally neutral thing? And then we've got the business of defining the terms that you use in turn to refer to these things. So my answer for the time being to your question is yes. Okay. The Turkish father and son have done good work on the manuscript. Have some of it translated full pages. I'm assuming that's in reference to the Voynich manuscript. I was not aware of that. All right. Okay, no question. So while you guys are thinking of some, I am going to read a little bit from La Rochefoucauld's Maxims. I think I may well do a full clip on this. And in anticipation of it, I went and did some research online in terms of finding old photographs of the interior of his home. The furnishings have, of course, changed. but as the seat of his noble house, its general outlines, you know, the paneling and the flagstones and all the rest, the fireplaces, they're all still there. It's very interesting. All right. Well, shit, I was just about to read and questions appeared. All right, I'm just going to read you a couple of these because I may do a full clip on this. These are little short maxims. He specializes in little short statements. In fact, he was a major influence on Nietzsche. So if you read things like The Gay Science or Human All Too Human, that's a period in particular when he was trying to take up the Rochefoucauld's approach. You know, he's also influenced by people like Montaigne and others. But anyway, here's one for you. We often think we are being constant in a time of misfortune when we are merely downcast and endure it without daring to face it, like cowards who let themselves be killed because they are afraid to defend themselves. Many of these are very good. Many are very wry, as in wry. Only people with some strength of character can be truly gentle. Usually what seems like gentleness is mere weakness, which readily turns to bitterness. Oh, how apropos for this troubled day of ours. I'll give you a couple more, they're just good. There are more people without self-interest than without envy. The dimmer bulbs, we'll have to chew on some of these things for a while. Here's a personal favorite of mine that I think, who's our questioner there? SD would like. Although this is more political, it actually has some sort of ontological implications. Or in terms of ethics, in any case, the end of good is an evil thing. The end of evil is a good thing. That bears some thinking about. Now, doesn't it? I'll find one more, then we'll go back to the questions. Weak people cannot be sincere. So yes, if you want to know how an aristocrat of the 17th century in France, when the French still had nice big bulldog-sized balls, how he talked and thought, yeah, before they became a nation of shopkeepers. The Rochefoucauld. All right. Where are we here? Adherent of Lady Columbia. Could you explain the big S is true will? Is this an entity of the deity variety or of another nature? This all being from the question of free will versus destiny. No, I cannot actually get into that here, and that's something that would be better for Tim to take up in any case. Yes. Yeah, save that. I'm hoping to get Tim on for one of these live streams again, and we may well do an ESO one since it has been so long since anything of the sort went on in the background. Zachary Rose, Semigog, are you familiar with Jason Reza Giorgiani? I believe you would enjoy his work. Yes, I saw him on JF, and I was very impressed. I thought it was a great discussion, and I went on to look for his content online, and I only found him involved with, God, I can't remember the name. It was kind of a goofy name, and very much kind of a Berkeley therapy clinic, esotericism kind of vibe for the channel. Not to impute any such sort of air or atmosphere to Giorgiani, but it was odd to me that he was only appearing on that channel since I first encountered him with JF. Yeah, I dig him, and that's actually one of the people I'm thinking about when I talk about esoteric Iranian Shiite, Neoplatonic doctrines and secret teachings. Yeah, I'm thinking a bit about Giorgiani. So yeah, he's interesting. Matthew Blackman says, what's your IQ and does it matter? It is high. And still there are people with far higher IQs. And I don't know that it matters. I mean, I like it. I wouldn't want it to be lower. And it makes me feel self-satisfied that it's, in the range it is. But I don't know. It's just, I see so many people who are very, very intelligent and they're utter fools. And I'm not even trying to downplay it. I've just learned so many different, like I was talking with the gypsy guy whose father was a fisherman from Seville, and he's like a book with all this knowledge of flamenco in his head. And I'm talking to him about this particular Palo Sevillanas, which is really kind of between gypsy and traditional Spanish. And he's like playing knuckles on the tabletop with all kinds of secondary fingers going, almost like you're doing rasgados on a guitar. So it's, like pop, 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 pop. And he jumps up and he'll be dancing and he'll come back and he'll hum something and he'll play the tabletop. And it's only when you've tried to do things like play a drum kit with, all 4 of your limbs keeping time in different ways that you know how complicated that is. It's only when you deal with things like trying to distinguish pitch, to have perfect pitch, or at least to have a proper ear with relative pitch. And then you try to do those things at the same time. And then you do things like try to give volume to your voice. I was dealing with him and he couldn't read. He'd have to ask me to help. I mean, English wasn't his native language, but he really probably didn't read in Spanish either. But he's got whole books, fucking encyclopedias of all the lore of all these songs. Because you could tell, the Bulerías is sung this way in Barameda Sanlúcar, and it's done this way over in Jerez or in Triana and Seville. They do it like this, or they do it like this. And he knows them all. And he played the historical ways they do it. And he couldn't read. And I don't think he had a high IQ at all. He was always shocked I had a tattoo. He's a gypsy, so he looked at it as being dirty. It meant you had somebody put their mark on you. He kept asking me, "Did you let somebody?" He's like, "You did that on purpose?" So I don't know. I don't know what IQ is worth. I mean, then you start talking about intellect and intuition, and you start thinking about things like the paralysis of analysis. Like half my life has been trying to slow down a wildly hyperactive left brain, if you will, and somehow mate it through this process of things like playing around with flamenco and dealing with rhythm, paying attention to gesture, pitch and music, paying attention to marks and signs, looking into sense, like trying to turn off the crazy running rat of the left brain. And eventually you get over that, and instead you try to marry it to the intuition so that both things can work together. And IQ probably has a fair amount to do as a measurement of a major part of one side of the animal. But there's so much more. And I mean, it's the old joke about, the kind of shit taught in universities is so stupid, only smart people will believe it. Like there's some truth to that. Despite the fact that it's a cuteness. Oswald said, "Do you consider yourself a Thelemite?" No, I got over my Aleister Crowley phase before I was 21. I was reading Golden Dawn knowledge lectures and Crowley books when I was in high school. Literally, I brought that shit and read that instead of what I was supposed to in high school. And he was a spy. If people who haven't seen it should really read Secret Agent 666 about Aleister Crowley working for the intelligence services. Do I think that one nation not being able to contain its population, a la Mexico, should be considered an act of war? I don't know if I'd say it could or should be considered an act of war, but it should be dealt with. Certainly. All right. Sorry, just catching up here. I've somehow fallen behind yet again. What am I missing? Secret teachings of free will. Okay, that's eternalism. Not quite a question. Adherent of Lady Columbia. God, I'm losing my voice. I couldn't talk. I should instead be drinking a proper sugary drink instead of this bubbly crap. All right. Video on commie corruption and changes of the U.S. military. Also, what happened to the P.O. box? I do now have a P.O. box. I have to figure out the best way to put it out there. But I do have one. And I'll start using it soon. May have to start using it really soon if we all get dumped from YouTube. The Hierophant. Yes, the Hierophant. Yes. An interesting card. El Vaquero, Semigog. There are a lot of high IQ people who never get exposed to the practical side of the world. Solve a differential equation? Sure. Remove a drive shaft after blowing a U-joint? Nope. And there's an entirely different thing about that. Like, I used to be always pissed off when anybody who was a contractor would come in my house, and I'd be like, well, how long is it going to take? You know, how much is it going to cost? And they were always, you know, always dodging it, never wanted to be pinned down. And then you start doing that work yourself, and you learn you can't say shit because you don't know what a nightmare it's going to be until you open whatever it is up. And you find out that, you know, for whatever reason, the end of the bolt broke off, and you're going to have to drill it out, you know, but it's hardened steel. So now you got to go get some new bit, or, you know, whatever it happens to be. You pull the toilet up and there's no little plastic collar mounted down there in the toilet flange. You know, you tear the wall out, you find out it's rotten at the bottom. And that actually builds a certain attitude. I think it, you know, it would work better for like the battlefield than it does for the boardroom, because it's just like always assume it's going to be a nightmare. All right. What else do we have here? Sorry, people. I'm just trying to catch up. Was I ever able to quit smoking? No. As a matter of fact, that's going to be the primary limit on the length of this discussion tonight. It's going to be my desire to go and have a cigarette. But I did drop it very, very significantly. And yes, this is a LaCroix. This is going to be like the Richard Spencer moment with the cheeseburgers, you know, what is it, mushrooms and Swiss. You just cut together me with the textiles and and the LaCroix. Everyone's going to leave this fucking channel. And the poems. This is great. Not King David says, can I send you a rosary cross? I don't know. I don't want you to send me anything made of gold. If it's gold, you should sell it. Yeah, and I have my Catholic goodies. I got some stuff from the Camargue to commemorate the fact that I was at least baptized Catholic, if nothing else. All right. Oswald says, what do you guys think the healthiest way to approach the occult is? I try to avoid fluff and pretenders, but I've been shocked by fellow men wish to go forward with greater care. Well, beware of any club that would want to have you as a member. No offense. I mean, that's a rule of thumb for me. What else? People who know what they're talking about obviously do so. So if you have any doubt about it, that's usually the sign that you just go away. Beware anyone who tries to remake you. I don't know. Yeah, I'd have to give that some thought. That almost deserves a clip of its own. Okay. The poems are fantastic, Jesse J. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. They're written at different times in different places. Nick. Shit, Nick is in there. I get up to get an Alka-Seltzer. Jesus Christ, man. I know you're not that old. Well, I'm glad to see you, sir. I hope that you're staying more or less civilized. I hear that people over there in the Carolinas, you guys tend to drag your knuckles, don't you? All right. What else do we have? Semiagog, have you ever looked into smithing? There's a surprisingly large community of smithers on YouTube. Do you mean smiths, like blacksmithing? Or, you know, goldsmith, silversmith? My shithead brother stole the anvil that I was supposed to return to a friend of mine, and a forge table for that matter. Piece of shit. Yeah, I haven't gotten into it. It never really called to me. I mean, it's cool, and I appreciate it with the weapons, the finished weapons, but in terms of what I could reasonably be expected to do, I don't know. I don't want, you know, to wear a leather apron so I don't burn myself. I mean, it's cool. I'm not frightened of hard work, but the idea of, you know, having sparks fall over me and swinging a hammer all day long, I totally respect it. Watch, you're going to write something saying that. It's not the smithing I was talking about, dumbass. Audrey Meehan says, were you raised Catholic? No. No, I was baptized, but that is it. I mean, other than reading, some Augustine and Thomas Aquinas, Isidore of Seville, Dionysius the Areopagite, Hugh and Richard of St. Victor, different. I mean, I read it. It's part of my culture. But I don't read it from the perspective of a Catholic. And my approach to religion is generally, you could call it mysticism for the most part anyway. So yeah, because Catholicism has its own very deep, long-running mystic traditions, and Christianity does too. It just takes a very different form under Protestantism. God damn, Siamese cats never shut up. Sorry about these terrible pauses, ladies and gentlemen. Biden has hairy legs. It's repulsive, man. What a repulsive turd of a man. Oh my God. Just a horrible turd of a man. Biden is just a repugnant creature. Oswald, Semiagog, a simple text or a system perhaps to meditate on for now would be nice. Well, I'll give it some thought. Tim would be a good one to ask that question to as well. Probably a much better one than I. But we shall see. Greta Thunberg. She's a piece of work. Man Ray of Hope, it's been a while. In the house. Kitty wants in on video. Yeah, she does, but she'd jump up here and get all around. And I just can't deal with cats' assholes right now. All right. Nick, I'm not old, but I do get up after 4 a.m. for work. I shouldn't fuck with you. Don't usually get home until about 6 p.m. Also work outside, so I'm going to go back to bed. Sir, good evening. That probably happened 20 minutes ago. I'm sorry that I did not get to it until now. Bring out the cats. No, they're stinky. All right. Not King David. Loved being an apprentice for lathing, welding, and metalworks in general. Quite nice. Machining, precisions. What do I think of Ouija? The art of the wise, the rule of three, blessed be. Worried it is cheapening Celtic polytheism. Yeah, it always seemed that way to me. I think I was in 7th grade when I went and bought my little starter tarot deck, and it was like the first 22 cards. And I think round about then I might have picked up like a Gardnerian Wicca book, Ouija, Gardnerian Ouija book, or Janet and Stuart Farrar. I met them. He was old and sort of blinking, and I was very young at the time, and ladies liked me. So Janet Farrar, who was a little younger, kept like looking at me like, come hither. That was briefly. I met the guys who published Green Egg magazine as well. And what's his name? The dude who got a degree in being a druid, Isaac Bonowitz. Yeah, I met them all at the same time back in the 90s. All right. Oh, so yeah, I think it does tend to cheapen Celtic polytheism, but not any more than, any of the other popular so-called occult stuff or reinterpretations does any ancient lore. I mean, think about, Ralph Bloom's book, The Runes, with his little bag of, ceramic little or polyester resin rune stones, how many people have read the Old English rune poem, and paid attention. Yeah, so all of it cheapens it, sadly. I mean, and there's a certain age range, and I guess it's mine. When you were kind of a punk rock kid, the only thing more common than strippers was Ouija, witch women, ready to piss off their parents with an upside down pentagram and black lipstick. I grew up with all of that, and I was foolish as well. I'm not just making fun of them. I was an idiot. Semiagog's a crazy cat lady. Yeah, I stole that expression from my friend, which is Mr. Cat Lady to you. All right. What else do we have? Sean L. Semiagog, thoughts on the Vatican and Jesuits running the show in the world? I'm not feeling it, except insofar as they're sock puppets for commies. I mean, maybe once upon a time, But by the time the Jesuits came into power, it was to, for the greater glory of God, it was like almost a counter-Reformation movement in and of itself. So by the time the Jesuits appeared, they appeared because the total control of Catholicism over Europe had been shattered, and they were attempting to keep, hang on to those Habsburg territories and the rest. So it's just, they never had they never ran the show in the world. They had varying degrees of power, and today, again, I think they're a sock puppet for commies. But yeah, I'm not entirely seeing it. Gavin Baker, am I agnostic? No, I believe in God. The issue gets to be defining that, and I tend to be rather pantheistic. Yes, occult equals secret. Quite right. Yes, Mr. Cat's Lady. Mr. X knows it. It's 2019 after all. Okay. For those who are later watching this and suffering through it, I apologize. This is an Ask Me Anything stream, and you just sort of get what you get. And I am beginning to lose my voice. All right. Familiar with The Witcher? Gerald specifically. This question from Baron von Blair. No, I had never heard of it. And then as soon as I started doing YouTube, I'm like, what is everybody talking about fucking The Witcher? And so, yeah, I went and saw it. So, yeah, I get it. What's the other one? There's somebody that they all say Tim looks like. Some old Russian sniper dude in one game. God, I remember his name. They said it all the time. And yeah, anyway, that was when Tim was shaving his head before he had this stroke. All right. Semiagog, it's funny that Gen X, this from Adherent of Lady Columbia, it's funny that Gen X, the literal jackass generation, is more sane than boomers and millennials and their children. Gen Z is arguably better. I hope they're better, but it's shocking that that's all they could manage. They should be so much better. The only thing more horrible than the idea that Gen X might have more common sense is the idea that I'm well on my way to being an elder. And I have to tell you, if I'm going to be the generation where I'm the one left alive to whom all of you must turn, I don't mean me specifically, but my generation, and not today, thank fucking God, but within another 10 or 20 years, if I'm the one that you have to turn to for guidance, my generation becomes the elder, yeah, y'all are fucked. Okay. SD, your recollections of Temple of Psychic Youth. I only dealt with Temple of Psychic Youth through their Colorado branch. And what was that? God, they had a guy name and a girl name. The girls were called Kalis, that's right. And the guys were called Coyote. So anybody who was in Temple of Psychic Youth would be called Coyote if he was a guy, and then he'd have a number. And anyone who was a female would be called Kali and would have a number. Jesus Christ, you're taking me back. And the guy out of Colorado who actually knew Genesis Peorage was named, or went by Coyote 22, I think. I can't fucking remember. That's like when Boyd Rice was cool. I mean, how long ago was that? Okay. The current Pope is a Jesse. Well, let's hope he has a chain around his thigh. I think that Jesuit, as you've written it, actually spells commie. No offense to any Catholics. Over The Witcher. Fake religion. Well, God, man, see, right when I'm catching up, it snaps to like update and pulls me down to the bottom of the screen. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. What do I think of Plato's Republic? I finally read all of that recently. I'd read part of it. I found it interesting. I was surprised at how commie most of it was. I mean, I like the idea of justice, within the soul of the individual person, taken at scale, representing the idea of justice in the polity. But I've just read it this once, and I think I'm going to have to read around it a little bit more, and then I'm going to have to go back and read it again, because there are a number of ways it could be taken. And I like to think that it probably has more going on with it than what I was able to draw from it on the one reading. And that's always the case with any kind of book of any value. Sean L. is Tim out digging graves. I spoke with him today, and mainly he's stacking up dead soldiers, which is, piling up the cigarette butts neatly in one corner of the ashtray. All right. Okay. I don't know what Amanda Anderson is pissed about, but yeah. Amanda the impatient. She needs to wear like a flowered mantle of impatience, little sparklers on it that she can like set off when she wants to. All right. As a model for society, okay, I guess that's a clarification. Presumably on the Republic. I keep having to scroll up and I lose my place. Yeah, I would not follow the model Republic as set forth by Plato. No, thank you. Okay. What else? What else do we have here? I'm just looking and I don't know. There's all sorts of things on here. Come on now. Gen X is horrifying and way, way worse than boomers. Nah, I wouldn't say they're worse than boomers. Boomers get a bad rap, and there are plenty of mighty boomers who do not possess feet of clay, but goddamn, taken as a whole. Ugh. There's only so many Woody Allen movies you can watch, you know what I'm saying? All right. The End, the legendary ancient sniper of Cobra Unit. That's so funny that Sabrina C1 is the one reminding me, yes, Tim was referred to as the End. Elvacaro 555. Semi-Agog, if our generation is who the younger generations have to turn to, we've seen all the mistakes from multiple generations, we'll manage as elders. Well, yeah, we'll at least feel that there's a reason to try, right? Absolutely. All right. Polygon, Semi-Agog, do you think porn is harmful to our people? Do you see it being used as a weapon? Yes, it's unquestionably harmful. And it does seem to be being used as a weapon. But I would say that, yes, it's harmful to our people, and that, yes, it's being used as a weapon, but I don't think it's only being used on our people. I think it's being used on everyone, everywhere, wherever it can get through, and that it's immensely corrosive and very difficult to deal with. And it's going to have, second and third order effects, if I can use that expression, that are going to, ramify for quite some time. Oswald, do you think the concept of Catholic saints results from integrated paganism? Well, I mean, it is called the Catholic Church, which means universal, and we know that the lay traditions are absorbed through the cult of the saints, and they vary by region. So yeah, I have a good friend who did quite a bit of research on, for example, the Rocio in southern Spain, and he's also looked at the Voladores in Latin America, I believe in Mexico. And he's someone who understands the topic much better than I do, and I trust him. All right. People are saying the screen is blurry. It doesn't look blurry here to me. So who knows? Bremen bloodline. See, I mentioned this shit, and now everybody knows. It just gets remembered. And it's from near Bremen. Near Bremen. The Timken name. Eternalism, the boomers deserve a nice soft pillow for all they've done. Yes, but I think you're probably talking about the pillow on top of the head rather than the one under the head, right? Evil. Shame on you. There are elders. All television is a weapon. Well, I definitely agree with Napoleon Bonaparte there. I'd carry it even further and say that everything's a weapon. All right. Okay. All moving images are dangerous to the human psyche. Yes, much like toys that pass in front of the view of cats. Pornography is the enslavement of desire. Desire is already enslaved. It's been argued that we're here, all of us, every manifest thing, simply because of desire for desire. So I don't know that removing porn would remove desire. Eros is a bloody-handed Well, fuck her. Okay, somebody said, what kind of wall rug is that? Sorry, that question is from Josephine Coffin. We just went through that at great length in the early part of this, so I'm not going to go into I'm not going to go back into that. But if you are interested in the textile, I discuss it at length, and I even pull a pile of them out that I pulled out earlier to show everyone from East Asia. You see what the ladies did for me when they liked me. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? That was a Ukrainian girl who did that. So pretty when women make you things. I wish there were more tear stains on it, though. That would definitely make it more meaningful. A Turkish woman made me this. Pretty. She had a taste for color. Once again, though, no tear stains. Why do I even keep it? Okay. Let us see what we have here. What's next for us here, darling? Boy chick. Where were we? Oh, we were with porn diminishes desire for human contact. Yes, indeed it does. The only way to overcome a temptation is to yield to it. Oscar Wilde. I prefer the lines from the Proverbs of Hell by William Blake, including, dip him in a river who loves water. The cut worm forgives the plow. Yes. Tim is a boomer, yes. Tim is a boomer with far more experience of things. Yes, anyway. Anyway, I'm not even going to go down that road. Words are weapons. Where is my safe place? My butt hurts and it's damp here. I don't know what that means. But this is a 12:21 a.m. stream, which I'm going to end at 1, just because anyone who tries to go back through this and listen to this insanity, it's going to be like punishment for them. So it's almost in their best interest if I intentionally cut it off before it goes on too long. What else here? Words have been subverted and weaponized. Stop using them. That from Eternalism. Well, there is, how's it go from the Tao? I always mix up the first verses. The name that can be named by man is not the eternal name that was before the world began or human language came. The way that can, it's the way that can be named by man is not the eternal way. Eternal truths cannot be told in what men write or say. The name that can be named by man is not the eternal name that was before the world began or human language came. In that the nameable took root, the tree of fire and force, which having blossomed and borne fruit, returns then to its source. Yes, though tight the net of words may bind, how surely truth slips out. More from the Tao. Somebody asked about Schopenhauer. I have not yet read him, but I probably will have to. And probably will before too much longer. But I'm going to jump ahead and deal with Heidegger and then go backwards and leapfrog back across Nietzsche again. And this time, instead of Max Stirner, it will be to Schopenhauer. Okay. Justin Lee says, sup, Polygon? I love my chat section. Welcome, Justin Lee. Baron von Blair. Oh, it's what? It just skipped again. Where did we get lost? Have I seen Q and do I think it's all crazy people? I think Q is like what would happen if you tried to make the light beer version of what's actually going on. The main way I look, I think a lot of it is more or less accurate in its generalities, but it asserts that there is just an international ring of criminals, which is as vague as can be. And it doesn't really force you to have to be alert to any kind of ideology and move on after anything gets done to continue to deal with it, because once the criminals are taken out, they're out of the system, they go to jail, because that's what happens with criminals, and you're done. And so I think it's been presented that way for a reason, because the idea is to build this tension, build this expectation, throw some dog treats to a certain conspiracy-hungry corner of the internet, and they can gnaw on that. And you hear the cracking sounds as the dog gleefully just gnaws at it. And then when something eventually happens, it's been contextualized. It was a worldwide network of criminals, and now they've been dealt with. Whereas, I think that they're more or less right, but we've got a situation where, how do you say it? where there are more ideological issues. There are some more persistent issues than simply a group of criminals who are cooperating, though that dimension of it, I think, is true as well. All right. Oswald says, what's the mannequin in the back wearing? That there mannequin right there, that motherfucker is a 1920s Circassian type outfit. It's actually probably from before the 1920s because they kind of stopped after everything got going with the Civil War and all that. This is basically up to right around the period of World War I. This would have been a Caucasian Circassian style doohickeys, but the people who wore that kind of stuff were ranged from Eastern Caucasus and Dagestan with like the Avars, which is where you get what's his name today. God damn it. Khabib Nurmagomedov from the eastern reaches of Dagestan, where the Avars live, and his mountain auls, his villages, but it goes all the way up to the northwest Caucasus with the Circassians and what's now called Abkhazia, and people in people in fucking Georgia wore it too. So yeah, it's Circassian. It's all from about World War I, except some of the stuff's earlier. The big ass comma, that dagger that you see hanging there on the belt, right about. Oh shit, fire! Right about there. That one right there is probably 1890s. And some of the other stuff, the powder tub's probably a little later from Turkey. And the hood, the Bashlyk, as they call it, is Russian military. It's got one of these, rubles sewn into it down at the bottom to serve as a button. So it's probably World War I-ish, all of it. So it's late 19th century, early 20th. Brought back assembled from various parts and pieces as I was dealing in the Grand Bazaar. Okay, what else? I really fucked up that voice. I think I could have done a better redneck voice. I apologize, people. What kind of wall rug is that? I still love that. Sean L says, do you think that prayer is the Western version of meditation? Yeah, but I tend to think of meditation as yes, you could say that, but I tend to think of meditation as the process of finding that it's something that is inherent within oneself. And the main problem is that to equate those two things, given that that's the case, prayer within a Western tradition, that could be heretical or the rest. But if we're talking about mysticism and the mystic traditions, rather than the more widely accepted lay traditions of the Western Church, and even from very little I know of it, some of the traditions of the Eastern Church, if you're talking about mysticism, yeah, you could relate it. But there's contemplation too. And a lot of people misname as meditation a thing that is in fact contemplation. And they have their respective domains. Although there is overlap in that the apotheosis Venn diagram there. Okay. What do I think of Schopenhauer then? I have not yet read him. I will jump back to him and read him. Okay. People are arguing about porn. El Vaquero, I was just about to read it, and it fucking jumps down. Why does it drop me to the bottom? If I wanted to be at the fucking bottom, I would have scrolled down to the bottom. I'm not at the bottom, so I don't want it to auto-refresh as soon as somebody puts a comment in. Motherfucker. Okay, El Vaquero 555. Semi-Agog, what do you think about the idea that respect of elders is meaningless these days because it used to be that you had to be smart and resourceful to survive into old age, but not now? There are the same number of idiots always. I mean, maybe slightly fewer because it was easier for them to die. So in that respect, I think there's probably something to your view. But the bottom line is that, just because they're old doesn't mean you should trust them. It just means you should try to be polite to them until given a reason to do otherwise. And even then, you should try to be polite to them. But yeah, fools are fools, and plenty of them have white hair. I mean, look at me. What do I think of the Catholic veneration of altruism? I prefer terms like enlightened self-interest, which Tim has proposed as the sensible alternative to altruism, given how we've seen that it so often goes slipping and sliding over into pathological altruism. Okay. Do I ever watch Pete's 2 a.m. show, High Strangeness? I do not. The redneck accent's gonna make you drink? Fuck. Yep. I first learned about these accents properly when I was living down in the South. My brother was working carpentry, and he came back before it was fashionable, back before it was pretend. He came back with a mason jar full of moonshine, white lightning, that him and his framer buddies, carpenters, was drinking. And I worked as a framer for a little while, believe it or not. So I heard people talking like that. I worked with a guy whose name was Billy Joe Jim Bob, and he had been hit square in the head with a 28-ounce framing hammer by someone who did not like him, and the dent stayed. I've met all sorts of people. Okay. What else here? Take a swig from the old mason jar. That's right. Faith Alexandria in the house. Hello, hello. All right. Into that which is size Kaiser into Kaiser. Okay. That's gross. Man Ray of Hope is getting turned on by something. I hope his little dog lipstick didn't come out and he ain't humping nobody's leg. Will I ever grow out a full beard and become the white wolf as prophesized? I think I'll eventually have to. I am going to have to get like a good, but that's patriarch's beard. A man should not be allowed to grow a proper beard until he has a woman. And otherwise, I call bullshit. That's why I hate all the millennials with their big beards. Like, if you're going to have a beard, you better have a Boris Vallejo type woman, like leaning against the side of your chair. Fucking big beard. That's how you do it. When you've got tears on the old embroideries that the previous women had given you, then you can grow a full beard and squat before a column like a brooding barbarian. All right. God damn it. It just auto shifted down again. God damn it. Okay. There we go. Take a swig from the old mason jar. Back in the same place. I had to read if you're trying to turn me on, it's working a second time. That's gross. Okay. Reading a good book is how Westerners meditated. Quite right. Quite right. And this is a good book. I recommend it to everyone. Hiroshima Collective Maxims. Okay. 3 out of 10 on the accent from Inherent Fladia, Columbia. Yeah, people who live down south and they've actually heard how people talk, they don't take all that bullshit. Like, there's a version of a Georgia accent I can't do, but it's like it's a little rounder. And the people are, like, you'll hear it from Representative Doug Collins, where I can't do it right. And then Mississippi, Alabama, they all got their own. I can't do all of them. But I did hear myself, as I've said once in some other live stream, I was doing a presentation for business, and I heard myself say, Japan. And I was like, Japan. Right. Okay. I'm looking for questions, and I'm lost here. I love moonshine. Speaking that accent is condescending. You have it or you don't. I do have it. It comes out in a limited way. I love accents like that. I've been working on Morgoth's accent. Well, hello again now, folks. Yeah, they are. Awa. I love doing accents. There's nothing, absolutely nothing that is condescending. People can take it that way, but fuck them. I collect their statements, their ways of speaking. I fucking love it. I collect Southern sayings. They're fantastic. So yeah, if you want to take it personally, I guess you can, but it sure as fuck is not intended that way. I got robbed in Romania and found two people who are from Alabama talking, and I heard that Southern accent, and I just kind of fucking walked towards it. I'm like, Jesus Christ, you're going to rob me again? Get me the fuck out of this place. Their hamburgers have no meat in it. There are bullet holes in the walls from the last fucking riots. They just got rid of Ceausescu. I couldn't buy an Ostragon cap like I wanted to. Please, God, take me home. They said, hey, how you doing? I said, I'm just fine. You mind if I walk with y'all for a little bit? Okay. Yeah, and I get why a bunch of people are pissed off about being called boomers. There's a bunch of fucking disrespectful crap associated with it, and it gets on my nerves too. But there is something about that generation, and I'm sure as hell I'm not blaming it on Jimmy Parker. But there are a bunch of fuck ups in that generation. I know because I was almost raised by it. My parents are just short of it. They were born before World War II ended, and then had me late. All right. I'm trying to keep up here, people. I realize that my accents were not doing what you had wanted them to do. That's the other problem. The fucking German accent rolls over into Kermit the Frog here. And you know it's late at that point when you start hearing Muppets. Because it means Jordan Peterson's coming. All right. Impersonate Tim's accent. I can't. What are you talking about? Well, I can't do it. My voice is now too burned out for me to drop it that low. Okay. You have read Ovid, haven't you, Ollie? Yeah, I can't go low enough. What else do we have? All right, Tennessee, Pennsylvania. All right, you guys are listing things. So we're running out of subjects. This is it, peoples. Time for me to have another delicious LaCroix. LaCroix is a delicious beverage, and you're going to have it with me. Clearly, it's getting late. Come on now, people. What do we got? No questions. Come on, man. I'm making a fool of myself in the middle of the night. This is basically just to test the live stream and make sure it's working. You got to throw me some decent questions now. And forgive me any of the people whom I might have, passed over previously and who asked good questions but didn't put the orange block around it. So I missed it. What the fuck is LaCroix? It's a stupid bubbling water which has some kind of it has a flavor that feels like somebody took out the little piece of cloth inside an air freshener that gives it a horrible fake artificial fruit scent or something, and then you wrang out your fake thing and then rinsed it a bunch of times so almost all the flavor was gone, and then added it to a bubbling water. I have a friend who buys it, and so when it's here I drink it instead of getting drunk. Semigog, best Roman emperor. Well, I mean, they all suck after old Julius Caesar as dictator, and that's before emperors appear, but I don't really know them well enough, but I tend to like Marcus Aurelius. I know it's just pussing out and giving an easy answer, but I've been paying attention to the period right up before the Principate. It's real simple, Ollie. No matter how way you cut this, no matter what way you cut this puppy up. Yes. Listen here, partner, I'm going to tell you. Yes. Tim. Okay, you must take responsibility. Justin Lee says I do a good job on the gay accent. Thanks. I think. How many languages do I speak? English and Turkish. And I can, read little bits of other things, but by no means do I speak it. Homeschooling and homesteading. I hope to do that. I'm leaving. I'm getting out of here. I'm eventually going to sell this house and go to the woods. Fuck these people. But I'm going to have to make sure that I have a good internet connection. All right. Napoleon Bonaparte, is LaCroix a French brand? No, it's probably from fucking Cleveland for all I fucking know. It's stupid marketing. It sounds French, which means that it's lighter and more effervescent. I love the mouthfeel. Did you know that the beverage companies use the term mouthfeel? Is there anything more disgusting than the term mouthfeel? Hadrian, yeah, he built a big fucking wall. All right. Do I have good historical sources for life, technology, and whatnot in the Roman Republic period? Well, I'll tell you, Tim turned me onto it, but the Colleen McCullough books are great to have a fictional skeleton for a period. But then what I do is I just read the Loeb Classic Library. So I just picked up, the green ones are Greek, and they have the original language on the facing page. The red ones are the Latin ones. So, I picked up a bunch of Cicero and who else? I need to get Plutarch's Lives, but I just picked up Aristotle's Rhetoric. Well, anyway, that's Greek. You're asking about Latin. I got old stuff in Latin, some of the early Latin poets and the 12 tables. And the earliest Latin stuff that we have recorded from Loeb's, I've got, as I said, Cicero, the Pseudo-Ciceronian Ad Horennium, some of, the Gallic Wars by Caesar. Civil Wars I have not read yet, but I will. A bunch of that kind of stuff. Tacitus, yes, another good one. Agricola and the Germania. No knowledge of Latin or German, for shame. Yes, well, that is a shame, actually. I've spent a little time learning Latin, but I've forgotten most of it, and I need to go back to it. I actually wish to do so. And Anderson says, stop drinking yuppie water, pussy. Quite right, I should. All right. I just made fun of Cleveland. Sorry. Did I know the Romans had a postal service? But duh. Yes. Josephine Coffin says Perrier was the thing long ago. Yes. And it was just as silly. No, actually, Perrier was less silly than LaCroix and less cheap and stupid. And actually, San Pellegrino is all right if you want like good bubbles. Mouthfeel ran a Coca-Cola factory as a kid. Yes, you do know about it then. I've done lots and lots of work for that company, or did a long time ago. Okay, do I know of Simon, and have I read his translation of the Necronomicon? Translated it from what? From nothing? The Necronomicon is a fabrication based on the mention made by Lovecraft, as I recall. Based on the mention made by Lovecraft, as I recall. So yeah, I'd have to wonder what it was translated from. Yes, I have Wheelock's Latin textbook, and I have another one that's better. It's over on the shelf. I made a copy of it years ago, and it's still sitting there because it's quite good. Contemporary art. I don't understand. Is that the question? What do I think about contemporary art? If so, I have a friend who is a gallerist, and his father is a very famous painter, and he turned me on to quite a bit of stuff. And then my art school friends, when I was a punk rock teenager growing up, all the guys went off to art school to get laid. And so I didn't bother with that. I thought it was a waste of money, but I had to hear from them. It's when everybody's like, oh my God, Francis Bacon is so amazing. What were the other ones? Who's a new guy, Damien, whatever, with the fucking shark? I don't know. I used to hear about it. I just get bored. I was paying attention to Turkish contemporary painters recently. And, in the last 10 years when I was living there, and there were quite a few good ones. Ansen Attila is really interesting. He does stuff where he photographs objects and puts them together. Toothbrushes for epaulets and crazy shit. He's a weird kid. But yeah, I haven't paid attention in a long time. I mean, Odd Nerdrum is a painter I like. Odd, I guess I should say Odd Nerdrum. Who else? Balthus, but that's a little dated now. That's not contemporary. Yeah, Balthus, Odd Nerdrum. Who else do I have in my books of paintings? Personal friends, my friend's father that I mentioned. I don't know. I don't pay a lot of attention to it. Yeah, the only one I ever bothered to go out and I wanted was Balthus because of his cats and the women with the perfect banana boobies. Yeah, Balthus and Odd Nerdrum. That's who I can think of. That's a decent try. If I'd had a little bit more time, I would have gone in and looked at my bookshelf and remembered. But I'm too fucking old. Okay. What's my thought on the protocols of the Elders of Zion? As best I can tell, that is an Okhrana forgery from the Tsar's secret police that was then carried over and used in different ways. I mean, that's the best I know about it. If you have a really strong opinion about it, and I suspect a whole bunch of people are going to have a strong opinion about it, send me the links and I'll go check them out. Did I know Sprite was originally lemon lime flavored Fanta? Who knew? Jonathan Pohl, Semigok, thoughts on Soviet ethnographers like Shirokogorov and Bromley? You have just waded off into territory that is too esoteric for me. I'm trying to think if I know any. Like, do I know of any Soviet ethnographers? I mean, I probably could pull a couple names. Like, I'd have to go over my shit from, what's his name? I think he's a SOAS, whatever, graduate. George Hewitt, who studied Abkhazian. And, his books on Abkhazians and Amjad Jamuka's one on the Circassians. I could look in there and pull out whoever it was that was Russian that has done ethnographic work that pertain to the Circassians and give you a cheating kind of an answer. But, I don't read Russian. And as I discovered when I did the book on Damgas, the guy who was my co-editor on it, it's called Traditional Marking Systems. You can buy it on Amazon. None of the money goes to me. But I was a co-editor and one of the primary contributors, and I helped write the introduction. We worked with this guy named Sergei Yatsenko, who was at a school in Moscow. I'm not even going to guess because I don't want to disrespect him by, maybe saying some, petty institution when he's a much more serious scholar. But he's an archaeologist who works in Russia. And anyway, he had provided basic translations, and I had to clean up these fucking Russian translations, academic translations. And I'm telling you, it's like dependent clause after dependent clause. It just goes on for like a paragraph, and you're trying to cut it up to make it work for English readers. But anyway, my experience was that so much of that is still behind an iron curtain. There is no real sharing still today of East and West in terms of things like anthropology and archaeology and the rest. So, mea maxima culpa. I'm not as knowledgeable because I'm too fucking lazy and didn't learn Russian, and would like to too. So I cannot say. That's a long, long way of just backing off in fear. Damien Hirst, yes, that's the guy with the shark. Yeah, all that kind of crap. I'm not into it. I have to be honest, it's total left-wing commie insanity, but just because I grew up with the books of photographs around as a kid, I was into Diane Arbus. She saw something and then killed herself before she became, it's probably like a lot of these singers from the 60s. It's a good thing that they did because you almost don't want to see them in old age. It's like Janis Joplin is a fucking angel. But can you imagine if she was coming out at like 70 and lecturing us right now about Clinton? I almost like remembering her this way better. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Okay. I can't sing, by the way, if that wasn't clear. It seems to live in academia. Most seems drenched in irony and subversion of the canon, at least in academia, where it lives now, unfortunately. Yes, quite. When I get the chance, check out Ai Weiwei's Sunflower Seeds. It's really something. All right. I will check it out. Whoa, it just jumped. Damn it, I was at Corsican something. Mr. Ixme's out. I hope I didn't miss you. I'm reading along so far behind. Thank you for coming in. Be well. Be safe out there on the land of crazy, crazy, crazy people. Taschen publishes lots of art books. Yeah, I've got them. I mean, I could talk to you about art all day long, just not contemporary art. I've got book after, lots of the Georges Brasilier, or however the fuck you pronounce it, all the reproductions of illuminated manuscripts from various periods from late antiquity up through the late Renaissance. I've got a fair amount of Blake's stuff. Yeah, and I've got an original Osman Spare drawing hanging in the other room. Okay, what else do we have? Art Deco had some moments. Yes. What else do we have here? Good night, everyone. All right, Balthus, the king of cats. Okay, I'm almost caught up here. Good night to everyone who's leaving. Virginia Woolf. Ugh. You know what, to be honest, I haven't read her, but there was a certain kind of girl when I was growing up that read Virginia Woolf, and I'll never be able to, I'll never, ever be able to, never, ever be able to read her and give her any kind of, I can't do it. Janis Joplin was low maintenance, quite. Is there much archaeological research on the mound civilization? I don't know. Depends on which mounds you're talking about. Talking about like Kurgan culture, or are you talking about American Indians in the Southeast? All right. Can I imagine Mama Costa Day? Yeah, no, thank you. Do I think that postmodern art will return to romanticism? Well, if it does, it won't be postmodern. I don't know what's going to happen with it. Right now, it's just a shithole mess. And it may be so fragmented and splintered that we're going to need to welcome the arrival of a comet before anything can be sorted. I don't know. We're 9 minutes away, ladies and gentlemen. This has gone on for almost 2 hours. Can you imagine? Let me see if I can find something in here as a closing thing to read to y'all. What do I have? Give me just the right length. The origins of illness. Falsehood. The relationship between men and animals. Taste. The uncertainty of jealousy. Love and life. Love and the sea. Did I mark any of them? These wouldn't have been as good in the back if I didn't mark them. Mark any long ones. Oh, for shame. Renee Guignon. No, I have not read that person, but I suspect I'm going to have to as I'm looking into the Evola stuff. And we'll have to kind of go down that rabbit hole. So check back with me later and I will let you know whether I survived that. Damn, I was thinking that I would be able to read a good little version out of here. Oswald asks, do you think that postmodern art affords a method of decentralization to art, thereby making it less elite and more attainable to the average individual? No, I think what art actually is has nothing to do with any given movement and its individual expression within the context of making a meaningful statement to people around you. So it's less important that you be a part of a movement and more important, in my view, that whatever it is that you create have some sort of meaning to others, right? You can't just shit in your pants and hold it up and as so many do with pomo art, as something that people have to look to the thing and see something of themselves or their circumstances or their own thoughts or trajectory or hopes or ideals reflected in that thing, worked out in some fashion, positive or negative, drawing you in or even becoming so threatening as to be repellent, but have meaning. Whereas most of it is just like you look over and you're like, why should I care if somebody's shopping cart rolled over a cockroach? I don't care. So yeah, relevance, meaning for those who view it is more important than being a part of any given movement. I have checked out Asha Logos' channel. I do dig it. And I just heard from the last Message to the West contest that Asha won the first prize over there, which was a nice cash prize. I participated in it and was one of the early guys who did. I was happy to support them. Did not win any prizes, but it was very cool. I had a good time doing it. You can see more about the last Message to the West contest if you go over to, I think, the last video by No White Guilt. They'll definitely have a link in there to to their site, and you should go and check out the stuff. There's more than 20. I think there's close to 30, if not more, contributors who did videos to participate in the contest. Each one is 5 minutes long. Go and check it out. And also, I'll remind people again that I did a interview with JF, Gary IP, on the public space. And it's up within the last week. You can go check it out. It was more than an hour of discussion on European identity. I think many people will find it useful. And if not useful, it'll at least give you some ammunition for you to come bitch at me about. And what else? And coming up, not too far in the future, I will be doing a discussion with JF on the subject of the movie The Joker. I think that it's mediocre agitprop crap. JF apparently takes a different position and boldly stepped forward, slapped me with his glove, and then threw it upon the ground and said, "Debate me." So I will be debating him within the next week or so. Stay tuned. You can follow me on Twitter to find out more about it. Polygon took off. Take care. Good evening. Okay, El Vaquero was in the boot heel in New Mexico, listening to what radio I could. The country sounded just like pop, and the pop station played some of the country. The decline of music. Yeah, I think it all has to do with the leveling. Whenever you want to bring all these wildly disparate people together, you have to drop to lower and lower levels to find whatever the common denominator is. And eventually it's like, it just gets so lowered that it's like I mentioned in, I think, the discussion with JF, you've got people out, you know, twerking on the ground. They're fucking pavement. They're women with stretched Daisy Dukes on, bouncing up and down to show you, to make as if they're fucking pavement. And so that kind of shows you the kind of level you have to drop to for it to be low enough in terms of like engaging the reptile brain, but having cultural relevance across these wildly disparate groups at different levels of development with different interests. All you kind of get is, I guess, the figure of a woman humping the ground is the one thing that everybody would in theory agree on as being interesting. And so naturally that has implications for culture. You know, fundamentally it hurts things like music. And then, you know, there's the commodification of it, you know, the centralized control of it, yada, yada, yada. Bad thing about traditionalist esotericists, they convert to Islam. This motherfucker hasn't, won't, will not. I studied Islamic mysticism, but it's because I lived abroad over there and I was interested in it before I found out that it wasn't all like the interesting Sufi people who are so open-minded. Yeah, I won't be converting to Islam. Thank you, no. I guess that was a reference to someone else, but I figured I'd address that personally. I think that means Sabrina C1 is headed out. Thank you very much for dropping in. Have a good week yourself. All right, we're coming up on the close here. Who am I missing? Oswald says, oh, when you mentioned JF, who is he exactly? I'd like to check out the video you're on with him. That's JF Garia P. He's got a channel called The Public Space. And if I'm not spelling it wrong, the first are initials, J and F. Oh, somebody just wrote it underneath. The JFG live streams. I think it might be JF live streams. Is it JFG? Fuck. Anyway, yeah. If Zed does is still in the house, she will post a link, I'm sure. All right. Holly goes on a jihad. I'm going to go on a jihad to where my cigarettes are and roll one. Yeah, twerking is kind of degenerate. I mean, if you want to do it in the privacy of your own home where it's what it becomes what it looks like instead of just looking like it, that's fine. Do that in the privacy of your bedroom. Men and women should be entertaining themselves with figuring out how the parts fit, but like out in public in the street, and it's something we're supposed to cheer. I'm like, come on, we have some style. All right. Ali dons a hijab. Motherfuck, a bunch of that will not happen. Okay, it's 12:59, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to pick one of these as my last statement. And now I'm clicking out of the clip. So I'm going to find my parting shot, which I'm going to steal from the Rochefoucauld. I've got one for you. All right, let me just look here. JFG Livestreams channel. Okay, good. He's got the link he needs. Amanda Anderson, thank you very much for dropping in. It is good to see you. Zed Des, good to see you. Thanks for dropping in. And everybody, all you different folks, ones who have checked out the chat before, like El Vaquero 555, and ones in the past who you know, have checked it out, as well as those from the future and these more recent days. Thank you all for coming in very, very much. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is my parting shot. Are you ready? Are you ready? The Rochefoucauld Maxims. I guess I should read it in French, except I can't pronounce French. And I'm going to have to be on the channel with JF, and he will not put up with that shit. He'll laugh and laugh and laugh. Okay, so there are few virtuous women who are not weary of their occupation.